what does? Welcome back to Reviews with Jake, where I just got done watching Eternals. Eternals is the next installment of the MCU in which we are introduced to the Eternals, a group of 10 immortal beings who were sent to Earth to protect us from the Deviants. Deviants are large, tentacle-like CGI creatures that, you guessed it, threaten Earth and stuff. Full disclosure, this one was not really leaping off the page at me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I get excited about every MCU film, but this one, That being said, I was not among the company that were looking at the Rotten Tomatoes scores leading up to its release, freaking out that it was not certified fresh. Before the release, that's all critic scores. The masses had not seen the movie yet. I feel like most of the time people blatantly disregard critic scores because they seem like the type of people that would smell their own farts and whatnot way up on their high horse. So why we all of a sudden give a damn about what critics think of a movie leading up to its release date? I don't know. Seems a little hypocritical to me, but hey. Welcome to the internet. Now, I was not among the company that checked out the negative things critics were saying about the movie leading up to it, because I obviously always avoid that shit as much as I can. But to say I was worried about this movie over something like that, no. I was worried about this movie long before the tomatoes were rotten. I was worried about this film when they were very much right, because the MCU is really opening things up. Time travel, multiverses, galactic cosmic stuff, more celestial godlike characters. I don't know, I personally believe that there is a line somewhere along the way in which we transcend into ridiculous, and I feel like this particular installment of the MCU might be a glimpse as to what's to come. But hey, in Kevin Feige we trust, right? The guy has yet to lead us astray, so I'm not gonna start doubting him until he really does. So let's start things out with probably the real starting point with just about any entry in the MCU. The common thread on every single installment is the humor. It's rarely an MCU film if it's not making you laugh or chuckle in some way, for better or worse, and I feel like this film really handled that well. There are several entries of the universe in which they use humor as a crutch. It sort of undercuts and undervalues real emotional impact in certain scenarios. But I did not feel that with this film. I feel like this film had a good handle on when it was time to laugh and when it was time to sit and be engaged. And I feel like humor is really important in films like this, because this is a 2.5 hour plus runtime. I mean, that's pretty hefty. And while yes, there are a handful of action sequences in the film, they are far from constant, so having another avenue, another method to keep us, the audience, on the hook when people aren't blasting lasers at each other, I think that's important. Another way that they will keep you hooked in this film are the amazing visuals and direction. Chloe Zhao is the director of this film, who we've already reviewed some of her work earlier this year with Nomadland. And I really enjoyed that movie, not only for the heartfelt human story that it told, but the beautiful imagery that came with it. And you get that once again with this movie. Beautiful landscapes being draped by the warmth of a sunrise or a sunset. It's basically the Zhao special at this point. But working in the new inclusion of some CGI elements, which are obviously not included in Nomadland, but I thought that the two paired very well together. As I mentioned before, and I will probably continue to mention in this review, we are reaching a pivotal stage of the MCU where things are getting pretty far out there. And when you start to dabble into these waters, how you visually represent these new really crazy ideas is really important. We kind of already got a taste of some of these cosmic, galactic themes in shows like WandaVision and Loki. Some of it looked really great, others I did not think so. For this film, in terms of strictly the visuals, I thought that this film handled it well. It brought in these new far out ideas and it never really felt off-brand for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's a really daring step to take the universe this direction. I thought visually it looked good. It was also acted extremely well, which is no surprise given how bonkers the cast is. I was contemplating going down the line listing off the names, but you already know I'm not going to waste any time in this review listing all the massive names and how expensive it probably was to get them all under one roof. Remember once upon a time when every movie had like maybe 2 big names and the rest were nobodies, and then occasionally you get that diamond in the rough, you'd get a movie with 3 big names in it and you'd look at the cover like, whoa, would you look at that? 3 big faces on this cover. And now we get movies like this where there are like 10 massive noteworthy faces plastered on a poster trying to elbow each other to get positioning on it. Then you have their names written above the title that are in like size 2 font. And then there's the whole and with complex regarding the last name listed as like the last one listed is going to be like the most noteworthy person in the film. Like, I can't believe they got them. Usually it's 1 name, maybe 2, but in this particular case it's with with Kit Harington, with Selma Hayek, and Angelina Jolie. It's just laughable at this point what money can get you. Having a stacked ass cast like this in a movie that would still be really expensive if I was the lead and maybe my dogs as supporting actors. But you can't really dispute the results. You pay top dollar to get high quality actors, you're gonna get high quality talent. This impressive ensemble brings these far out, godlike characters down to our level so we can understand them. They have issues, they have trials, they have struggles, insecurities, and we can comprehend this because of their performances. However, that being said, while I thought that all their performances were really strong individually, I didn't feel like they always gelled really great when interacting with each other, and that leads me to the cons. There were several instances where we have two of our million Eternals talking to each other, and I just didn't really buy their chemistry. It wasn't a huge thing, it wasn't a constant thing, but it was definitely a frequent thing. I can't really put my finger on exactly why or what it was, but it just didn't feel like they always clicked. Which is frankly really understandable. If you have 10 of these galactic daughters and sons of bitches, I mean, that is a huge crew. To expect that every single one of these actors and actresses are gonna all gel perfectly great with the other 9, I mean, that is just really unlikely. On the note of the sheer number of characters in this film, it brings me to a gripe that I always have with massive ensembles of characters in films: the characterization. Even in a 2.5 hour plus film, there's just not enough runtime to give us enough to care about all 10 of these characters. It's just impossible. There are a few standout characters that give us something to work with, something to care about, but the vast majority of them are just kind of there to send a blast or two or knock out a joke. Hardly enough time to build up and care about all these characters on top of telling a very plotty story that takes place over the span of centuries. This movie tries to do a lot in a short amount of time, short being very relative in this particular case. It has to establish who and what the Eternals are, what is their mission, who are their enemies, what have they been doing throughout the past centuries of being on Earth, what are their relationships amongst each other, as there are many, being 10 of them, what is their outlook for the future, how does it all tie into the MCU? It's just so much to accomplish in just one film, and as a result, it has an exposition problem. When you start a movie and before you see a single frame of actual video, you get hit with a black screen with scrolling paragraphs of text like frickin' Star Wars, yeah, they're gonna huck a lot at you. And if it's not already difficult enough to keep track of all these massive amounts of moving parts, they also jump around chronologically all over the place from AD, BC, AD, back and forth. So chronologically, it's really difficult to really keep your bearings. It's just a lot to ask of your audience to sit there for 2.5 hours plus and understand, comprehend everything that's going on, but also feel like you were moved emotionally in any significant way? Yeesh. I feel like this story would have really benefited from being told over the course of 2 movies instead of 1. Obviously, it would have costed an insane amount of money to keep this ensemble of a cast together under one roof for 2 movies, but I don't think money's an issue for Marvel or Disney. But to spend the first film introducing us to all 10 Eternals, show us their relationships, put them up against a really minor threat in the first movie, and then spend the second movie with the bigger stuff, the MCU shaping and shifting stuff. Do that all in the second one after we've already taken the time to get to know these characters. I mean, if you think about it, the Guardians of the Galaxy is pretty far out there, and we did not get introduced to them with the greater MCU until after they already had 2 films with each other. I don't know, there was just a lot of weight set on one single movie, and I feel like doing it in 2 movies would have really distributed that weight a little bit better. All in all, this movie is fine. It's a spectacle for sure, but I feel like it's sort of collapsed under the weight of its own ambition. It also has me really worried about the Avengers. Too many godlike characters flying around now. Poor Hawkeye. I feel like the MCU is starting to suffer from the DBZ effect, where you have a threat coming to Earth and Goku has to finally become a Super Saiyan to defeat him. Then a stronger foe arrives and Goku has to become a Super Saiyan 2 to defeat him. And then an even stronger foe arrives and Goku needs to become a Super Saiyan 3 to defeat him. Like seriously, what if that last motherfucker would have decided to pop by Earth a little earlier when Goku was still at level 1? That slippery evolution of you thought this last guy was bad? Wait till you see the next one. Is a scary thing. I'm hoping for the best, but I don't know, just a little worried. But who knows? Time will tell. In the meantime, in Kevin Feige we trust. I'm going to give Eternals a C+. But that is just me. What do you guys think? Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. And make sure to subscribe to this channel to stay up to date. New reviews coming real soon. Stay safe. Thanks for checking in.